In the heart of the Caribbean, an island pulsed with life, music, and untold stories. This is the story of Cuba, but not the one you think you know. It's not about the famous faces on posters or the grand speeches that echoed around the world. This is the story of the forgotten men, the farmers, the students, the workers who risked everything for a dream of freedom. This is the story of the Cuban Revolution, told from the ground up. Our story begins in 1952. Cuba was a paradise, but only for a select few. General Fulgencio Batista, a man backed by powerful American corporations and organized crime, had seized power in a military coup. Democracy was dead. In its place stood a regime built on corruption and fear. In the countryside, generations of farmers worked land they would never own, trapped in a cycle of poverty. In the cities, a university degree meant little when jobs were scarce, and dissent was silenced by Batista's secret police. That spark came on July 26, 1953. In the eastern city of Santiago de Cuba, a group of about 100 young rebels, led by a lawyer named Fidel Castro, launched a daring assault on the Moncada barracks, the second largest military fortress on the island. They were students, clerks, and tradesmen, armed with more courage than weapons. Their plan was audacious: seize the barracks, capture its arsenal, and broadcast a call to arms, igniting a nationwide uprising. But the plan went disastrously wrong. The element of surprise was lost. Batista's soldiers, caught off guard but far superior in numbers and firepower, fought back with brutal force. The attack was a catastrophic failure. Many rebels were killed in the fighting. Dozens more were captured, tortured, and executed on the spot. The streets of Santiago ran red with the blood of idealists. For a moment, it seemed the revolution had been crushed before it even began. The aftermath was grim. Batista declared martial law, rounding up anyone suspected of sympathizing with the rebels. Fidel Castro and his brother Raul were captured and put on trial. While Castro used the courtroom to deliver his famous "History will absolve me" speech, turning his defeat into a moral victory, the movement itself was shattered. Those who had survived the Moncada attack and escaped the government's dragnet faced a choice: surrender, flee, or disappear. Many chose the latter, melting away into the vast, rugged countryside of Cuba. They carried with them not weapons, but an idea that a better Cuba was possible, and that it was worth fighting for. These anonymous survivors became whispers in the villages, planting the seeds of rebellion in the fertile ground of discontent, far from the eyes of Batista's regime. They spoke to the campesinos, the rural farmers, sharing their food, their hardships, and their revolutionary dream. The fire had not been extinguished, it had merely been scattered into countless smaller embers, glowing in the dark. 3 years passed. In Mexico, the exiled survivors of Moncada had been plotting their return. They had raised funds, gathered weapons, and trained a small force of volunteers. On a cold November night in 1956, 82 men crowded onto a leaky, aging yacht named Grandma. It was a vessel designed for a dozen, now tasked with carrying a revolution across the Gulf of Mexico. Their journey was a nightmare. The boat was overloaded, the seas were rough, and they ran out of food and water. They were supposed to land and link up with allies on the island, but they were 2 days late, and their support network had already been discovered and dismantled by Batista's forces. They finally landed in a dense mangrove swamp, far from their intended target. Exhausted, disoriented, and alone, they were spotted almost immediately. Just days after landing, the rebels walked into a deadly ambush. Batista's army, alerted to their presence, descended upon them with overwhelming force. The 82 men were scattered, hunted down like animals in the sugarcane fields. The revolution was, for the second time, on the brink of total annihilation. Of the 82 who had sailed on the Granma, only a tiny fraction managed to escape the slaughter. The official government reports claimed a total victory, declaring the rebels wiped out. But they were wrong. A handful of survivors, perhaps 12, maybe 15, the exact number is lost to history, found each other in the chaos. Among them were Fidel and Raul Castro, Che Guevara, and Camilo Cienfuegos. They were wounded, starving, and armed with only a few rifles. Their grand invasion had been reduced to a desperate flight for survival. Their destination, the impenetrable mountains of the Sierra Maestra. The Sierra Maestra was a different world, a fortress of nature, with its steep peaks, dense forests, and hidden valleys. It had been a refuge for outlaws and rebels for centuries. It was here, in this remote wilderness, that the heart of the revolution would begin to beat again. The first to help them were the campesinos, the mountain farmers who knew the terrain like the back of their hands. These were the truly forgotten men. They had nothing but their small plots of land and a deep-seated hatred for Batista's abusive rural guards. They saw in these ragged survivors a reflection of their own struggle. A farmer named Guillermo Garcia Frias was one of the first to join them, becoming a crucial guide and leader. Soon, others followed. They offered food, shelter, and intelligence. They became the eyes and ears of the nascent guerrilla army. Life in the mountains was a brutal education in survival. The rebels were constantly on the move, hunted by thousands of government troops. They learned to live off the land, to march for days with little food, and to sleep on the hard, wet ground. Their weapons were old, and their ammunition was scarce. Every bullet counted. They fought a new kind of war, a guerrilla war of hit-and-run ambushes, sabotage, and psychological warfare. Small victories were celebrated as major triumphs. Capturing a single rifle from a soldier was a cause for celebration. Every successful raid brought them more weapons, more supplies, and more importantly, more credibility. They were proving they were not just bandits, but a legitimate alternative to Batista's corrupt state. Banned by the government, the stories were passed through whispers, secret radio broadcasts, and underground newspapers. Young men from the cities and towns began to make the dangerous journey to join them. They were university students who traded their books for rifles, factory workers who left their families, and even soldiers who defected from Batista's army. Disgusted by the brutality, they were ordered to commit. Each new recruit was a gamble, a testament to the growing belief that this small band of rebels could actually win. They were no longer just a dozen survivors. They were becoming an army of the people. But their greatest tests were still to come. Batista, backed by the United States, was preparing a massive final offensive to crush them once and for all. This was only the beginning of their fight. Join us in Part 2, as we witness the turning points that transformed this tiny guerrilla force into a revolutionary wave that would change the course of history, fueled by the blood, sacrifice, and unbreakable will of Cuba's forgotten men. Thank you for watching, and if you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more hidden histories. We'll see you in the next one.